Hello, my name is Sydney, right? And I will be asking some questions about the scientific method to my brother and his friend. Hi, this is Laisha, and I will be asking her a question about the scientific method. Do you know what is a bad scientific method?
Question.
Or a good one? And can you tell me?
Okay, so an example of a good scientific question would be if you were to ask, how often does it rain in Nevada in the month of October? That's a good scientific question because you get to collect data about a specific thing, and it's specific enough that you know what you're doing. Whereas if you were to just ask, how much does it rain? You don't have like a place where you can collect any information from. You don't have like a location or any numbers that you can collect. So.
Yay! Next step to the scientific method is gathering information. And I have my brother here, Nathan, who will be answering. Where did you gather information for your science project?
Most of the time the information I gathered was either from doing an experiment, but that was usually afterwards, or I talked to people. Really, I didn't do a whole lot of researching most of the time. A few times I'd go and look something up, but for the most part I'd try to experiment with something first before I tried to do the experiment.
Third step in the scientific method is a hypothesis. What is a hypothesis and how do you write one?
So a hypothesis is a guess on what what your research is going to come out to. So it's like if you were to guess like with the earlier example with how much it rains in Nevada in the month of October, if you were to guess it rains 17 inches in the month of October, then that would be your hypothesis for how much it will rain.
The fourth step is to test your hypothesis. How do you test your hypothesis out?
Usually through a experiment where you have a controlled variable and a uncontrolled variable where you can see what happens normally or in certain circumstances, and then you change the circumstances for different possible outcomes.
Go.
The fifth step into the scientific method is analyze your results. Was it easy to analyze your test results, and in what ways can you show the results?
So it really depends on the kind of experiment you're doing. Usually when you're doing a scientific experiment, you're using numbers to define the data that you've collected. So with numbers, it's a lot easier to calculate, what your outcomes have been and then what might continue to occur in consequential events. So the best way sometimes to show that kind of data is on a line graph, a scatter plot, just to show you over a period of time what happened.
The last step into the scientific method is a conclusion. What would you write in a conclusion?
Usually your conclusion is supposed to be like a summary, like overviewing everything. So a conclusion will restate the question in a way. It'll say your hypothesis, and then it will do some kind of rundown of the either experiment or the results of the experiment. Regardless, though, you will put your results, what you got out of it in the end. And then you'll put whether or not your hypothesis was accurate, inaccurate, or correct.